Coach, any takeaways from day 2 of practice today?
It's very similar. You come out here with with your spiders and your helmets on. It's it's really an indication of what the guys are learning in the meeting room. It's really the communication. The things that we really want to see is effort. The strain. The guys will eventually get it, even if they're newcomers. Techniques, those types of things. Over time, if you're into football, you will get it. But it's just really just how they're carrying themselves, what we're looking for in the communication.
Looks like some of the new guys are making an early impression, Bowlers and Buchanan and some of the others. Can you talk about what some of the new guys have added to the defense so far early on?
Some of those new guys that have joined us, as we're all kind of figuring this out and kind of adapting to what the transfer and the portal thing is, you're getting some very veteran players in. These are not players that weren't playing at their other school. They were huge parts of what they were doing, and as they transition, it's just kind of getting comfortable in some of the techniques and the vocab that they've been learning for years and years at the other place. But those guys that you mentioned, Teddy and TJ and several others, are very veteran guys, and they possess good leadership, and they're showing good habits, and they're going to help us immensely.
Cade was talking about just what Teddy's meant to him. Obviously, he's a freshman coming back and coming back as a sophomore, and then Teddy's kind of had some experience. What do you see as the value in having someone like Teddy on your roster right now?
Well, kind of about that last question is we're trying to find guys that are talented that have experience, and that's exactly the mold that Teddy was in, and we're excited to get him out here and continue to get him acclimated to what we're doing. But we have other linebackers that are very talented too. This is a part of the roster that I think we have several guys that can go out there and help us play winning football.
We talked with you in the spring about playing a little bit more of an aggressive defensive line with more emphasis on pushing upfield, and talked to Justin at ACC Media Week about what it takes to be able to play that kind of defense, and he talked about an emphasis on being able to play a lot of man coverage in the defensive backfield, and it seems like you have the guys to do that. A lot of athleticism, guys that are sticking with the receivers fairly well. Are you confident that you might be able to continue to take that more aggressive approach this season, or is it just going to be a matter of how it plays out in the rest of fall camp?
I think kind of how it plays out. Part of it is is identifying matchups. You can like a matchup 1 week, and then the next week, if you go against a couple of guys that are maybe different than the week before, I think you always have to continually assess where you can win. I think in football, there's a lot of desire to be something. But in my experience, just because you want to be something doesn't mean you are something. So we have to, we're going to continue to push the envelope in kind of what you're talking about. But I always think we always have to, have a realistic understanding of who you're competing against, how many opportunities you can put certain people in certain situations. But we're going to be as aggressive as we can when we find the matchups, and the D-line, and it's all 11, on the matchups on how we can handle the quarterback and how we handle the perimeter players.
Do you expect to have your first regular contact practice Saturday or Sunday when you're in defense, or is that not determined yet?
That's probably more of a Justin question. I think we'll be in helmets, and shoulder pads will be in shells on day 3. Then I think on Saturday we'll have their first off day. So I imagine he'll assess kind of where we're at and what he wants to do with it.
How do you feel about your interior defensive linemen? Has your opinion changed since spring based on who you brought in?
Well, I like what we have. Rick has been a big part of what we've been doing, and then with Aiden, TJ, Akili Calhoun, Stanley McKenzie in there. We just have to continue finding that depth, finding that rotation of what works for everybody.
Did Bowlers play inside at Wisconsin?
He kind of played all over. I think he played from a 5, a 4, a 3, all the way to a G, and I think even a little bit of a 1 or a 0. So I think he was very versatile on the inside part of the
line. He's going to be interior here.
Most likely, but that's not to say that would prevent him from playing outside the the guard or outside the tackle in certain situations, maybe in bigger personnel groupings.
And Calhoun is definitely an interior guy now.
Yeah, he's playing inside for us. Yeah.
Who are your outside guys?
The edges?
Yeah.
Oh boy, you got X, you got David, you got Serene, you got Sheck, you got BMW.
And defensive ends,
defensive ends, those are going to be the same characters.
Okay.
Sirmon, Sheck, BMW,
Who's BMW?
Ryan, Big Miles Williams.
Oh.
We have Miles Williams, and then Ryan McCullough.
What have you seen out of the couple of new guys, and Serene and Check?
I think both those guys have really good tools. It's just a matter of getting them up to speed. But they've, in the off season, Vic and I, we kind of talked about, what we need to do in terms of growth at that position. I think we need to get some bigger statured players that can play more physical on the tight ends, on the open side tackles. Guys that we can defend the CD gaps a little bit better with just some of the physical tools, and I think that's exactly what he did. He brought in Serene and Shaq, who kind of fit that mold of getting, they're not 290-pound guys, but it's a step up of some of the guys we've had in the past that really had to survive being undersized, but asking them to play over some physical tight ends and some 5 techniques on tackles.
What do you want your interior defensive linemen to do? What do you have them accomplish?
Well, in a perfect world, you have extremely disruptive athletes in there. But really, it's going to be the call that asks them, are we playing technique? Are we on a movement? And then from there, can they continue to establish the line of scrimmage, push back the line of scrimmage? And those guys, if they can defeat some one-on-ones and get off and help support tackles, be a half man on a tackle to be disruptive enough to make that ball bounce horizontally. The disruption is what we want ultimately. Even if you're playing technique, if you can be a disruptive athlete, that's going to be at a premium for us.
What's been your message to Cade? Because obviously last year, this time, it was a lot different outlook for him.
Onto who?
For Cade.
For Cade.
Yeah.
Cade is about just growth and development. He kind of got thrust into that opportunity, and he did a fantastic job of it. But sometimes, it's kind of like playing golf, right? You go play golf for the first 2 times, like, I'm pretty good at this. And the more you play, like, oh shit, then you start thinking about it. And and then it kind of gets into your head a little bit, where now this is an opportunity for him to reflect on what he's done. I believe, he should have all the confidence in the world that he has the physical tools and the mental aptitude to do it. Now it's about the consistency and how much better he can get.
Feels like you have a lot of options in the secondary, a lot of guys who have played some games previously. What's going to determine kind of who sees the field the most there?
How they practice. We're gonna let them ultimately tell us who's going to play. By their consistency, by their opportunities to get around the ball. Can they be trusted? How do they play when the ball's in the air? Are they going to get grabby? Are they going to panic? Are they going to be a player that kind of falls into some unnecessary penalties? So I think all those things will ultimately play into. But the more talent we can find back there, and guys that can play close to people, the more and more. You watch college football, the amount of space with the hash marks in college football and the oversplits and the RPOs. If you really, really want to shut people down, you have to be able to play close to them on the perimeter of the defense, in my opinion.
There was a scuffle out there late in the practice. Do you like to see the feistiness, or is it kind of an annoyance at this point?
Oh, I don't know. I was just making sure that nobody was taking their helmet off and nobody was getting thrown down. But shoot.
That's football.
Football's, I don't know what you're supposed to say anymore these days, but you get aggressive people out there and somebody doesn't like what happened, or somebody's frustrated and they take it out. And, as long as they have the opportunity to kind of vent for a minute, they move on from it. It never travels inside that tunnel. That's football, and anyone that's been around football or competitive groups, it's going to be frustration. So I'm not overly concerned about it.
Coach Wilcox talked about team speed and alluded to maybe this being the fastest team he's had here. You haven't gone full pads, you haven't gone at full speed yet, but he noticed that on the field from the defensive side. Yeah,
there are guys that I think Brian said we had 11 guys that were 21 miles plus on GPS this summer, which is a solid number. I don't know how much data we have past 10 years ago, so I don't know if that's better than it was 25 years ago or what it is, but we do have some guys that can go, especially in the back end. Isaiah Crosby can go, Marcus Harris can go, and that's the faster we can get to either eliminate X plays, or on the flip side, when they do have the opportunity to score and they get some space and they can outrun the defense and get those explosive plays. To be dangerous on offense, you have to have the ability to exploit people to death. And first downs are awesome, But first downs that turn into 7 points is really how you become a dangerous offense.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.